What's going on, everybody? Hex Odyssey here, and today I'm going to be talking about skill-based matchmaking and Black Ops Cold War and my personal thoughts on it and what I like and don't like. Based on the title, clearly don't like this overall as a feature, so let's have a little discussion about it. First, I'd like to start out with a few of the pros that I do think come along with skill-based matchmaking in any Call of Duty, but specifically Cold War. I do think that it does help some less skilled players. So an example I'm going to use a lot in this video is my dad, who plays Call of Duty on occasion, maybe 2, 3 times a week, and he's definitely a lower tier player if I'm being honest. He probably has a KD of about 0.3, 0.4. So obviously at the bottom end of players in the game population. And I think that it can help players that are at that low of a level just because if they get into a game against anyone with like a 1.2 or higher KD, they're going to get destroyed when they just, they don't get to play the game that often and they're just clearly like nowhere near that level of play. So I do think it can help people like that from having to play others because most of the game population is better than them anyways. So it definitely helps people like that. And another pro is that it stops people from getting absolutely destroyed every game. So, like, if you are one of those lower tier players, like I said, you aren't going to have to be playing, great players every game. The chances are you're always going to get lined up with someone who is much better than you. And if you're on a smaller map, say like Nuketown, which they're adding to the game soon, you have no chance. You're going to get absolutely destroyed on something like that. So I do think it can be good for situations like that for the people who are at the very low bottom tier of the player population. That's all I really have on pros that I can think of. Now let's move on to the cons. Contrary to what I just said, I actually do think that skill-based matchmaking can hurt bad players. And the reason I think this is because a lot of times bad players will queue with people who are better than them. So for example, if I were to play with my dad or someone else who has a lower KD than me, so I have about a 1.3, 1.4 KD, and someone with like a point 0.3 or a point 0.4 KD, if they're playing with me, what the game's going to do is it's going to average out both of our KDs, and it's going to match us with people with that median or mean average KD. So we would be playing against people with probably KDs around zero point 0.8 or so or 0.9, so that way they're in the middle difficulty for both of us. And I think this theoretically sounds like a good idea, but I don't think it works in practice because someone like me, I love playing matches with him because I absolutely destroy these people. Like, they might be in the middle of the difficulty for both of us, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be equally easy for both of us. For me, I still destroy people with that low of a KD, and it actually raises my KD, which seems good to me. And then for someone like my dad, he gets destroyed by people like this, or he usually does not play very well. So I don't think that's very good. I actually think that's a con. I think that Treyarch and Activision view this as something that will actually work out well, and it just doesn't have the same results or outcome that Treyarch expected it to have. Another con that I think is there with skill-based matchmaking is that it discourages great players from playing casually because they have to play hard every game to keep up. I mean, this is the thing that people bring up all the time with skill-based matchmaking when they're talking bad about it. It becomes an absolute sweat fest when you're a good player. If you've someone like me who's been playing Call of Duty for over 10 years and you've been working hard to get to this point of being good, and then you get on and you have to play hard every single match to keep up, it can get really annoying because some people don't want to play Call of Duty competitively. They just get good and then they want to be able to still play casually though, even though they're good. That just because you're a good player does not mean that you want to be playing league play or you're trying to get into the Call of Duty League or something like that. So I think that can be really annoying for players that are good because they have to just play super hard every game to keep up with that expectation that the game gives them. And like how it used to be whenever skill-based matchmaking didn't exist, or at least it had a weaker effect on the game, is that you may have a few games where you have to try really hard because you're playing people that are as good or better than you, but there would also be games where you're playing people that you are better than, and you get to kind of lay back and chill and just have a fun experience. And I think that's kind of gone away for the better players, which sucks because those are usually the better players in Call of Duty. I truly think are the ones that are going to stick around and are the core of your player base. Another thing that I think is a con with skill-based matchmaking is that some people you play when you're a better player, they may not really be quote unquote good players. What I mean by this is that they may have a good KD and they may be perceived as being on the same skill level as you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good player because they may use really cheesy items like shotguns and C4 and stuff like that. It just depends on the COD you're playing, but I think really like some things like that are really prevalent in Black Ops Cold War, and I've experienced that. And something that makes that really awful, I think, is that they made shotguns a secondary in this game, so you can pretty much run an assault rifle and a shotgun together. And I think that's idiotic. I'm just going to go into this for a second. I think that's idiotic because usually the idea that Call of Duty tries to tell you is that if you have to reload, you should switch to your secondary because it's better than having to reload and getting killed. But I think that's not a very smart philosophy whenever you have shotguns as a secondary, because it doesn't there's no negative for having to move, switch to your secondary. Normally, it is better to move to your pistol than to reload and just get killed. But whenever you get to move to a secondary like a shotgun that's just as good or better in close quarter situations, like with the shotguns in this game, there's no negative to that. There's no, there's no punishment for having to move to your secondary, and I think that that is not good for the game, and it kind of encourages people that may normally be good to play in a cheesy way to keep up in those matches, like I said, where they have to play really sweaty to keep their KDs good and play as good as they normally would, which I think is really negative for the game overall in the long run. The last con that I thought of when rating skill-based matchmaking in this game is that it assumes everyone wants their game to be an ultra competitive match, when most COD players don't think that way at all. Like I was saying earlier, um, just because you are a player that's good at the game does not at all mean that you want to be playing the game competitively all the time. The argument I always see in support of skill-based matchmaking is that the game should be made for the casuals because they're the main player base, and that it doesn't have to be, competitive for everyone. Adding skill-based matchmaking just makes the game more competitive for the good players and makes it more casual for the worst players. So someone like me with a 1.3, 1.4 KD, if I'm always playing players at that level, then I have to go hard every match, and it just makes it me feel like I'm playing league play when I'm just in a regular casual match. But for someone who's a worse player, if they start to play more and they play a lot and they play against these worse players, then they're eventually going to get good and they're just going to start playing a lot better against them, and it's going to feel more casual to them. So it's good for some people, but it's not good for everyone. And I think for the better players, skill-based matchmaking is really negative, and that's why you've seen such a negative outlook on it this year, especially. So there's a few ways I think that we could fix this, obviously through removing it, of course, but the first I see is removing skill-based matchmaking and adding a ranked playlist or league play for competitive players. So when I say competitive players, I mean the people who want to play the game competitively. Because, like I said, not everyone wants to play this game competitively. Some people want to just play it for fun. So if you want to play it competitively, you should be able to hop into a league play match with a MMR system where it's completely ranked based on your skill level, how many wins you get, and your KD and things like that. So I think that is one way to fix this problem. Another way is to keep skill-based matchmaking, but limit the range in which you have to play within. So I'm just going to use kill-death ratio as an example for this. So what I mean is, if skill-based matchmaking is completely based off of KD, which I don't think it is. So if you have a 1.3 KD, I think that how it should work to fix this is have you play players that are from a zero 0.8 to a 1.8, for example, so they're within a 0.5 KD of you, rather than having them play within like a zero 0.2 KD of you. I think that this will increase the range and it will make it feel less like a sweat fest, because you may have to play players that are better than you, but you will at least get a range of players rather than having to play people that are always on your skill level. Because if you're a player with like above like a 1.0 KD, you're gonna have to be playing hard every match. But if you have like a 1.3, like I said, and you get to play people that are at a 0.8 or a 1.8, some matches may be easier than others, and some matches you might have to play someone who's actually better than you. So I think this kind of decreases the challenge that you will have in every match. So sometimes you may have to play harder than others, and other times you get to play more casually, and I think that is very positive for the game, and that is another way. But I do think the first one is the best example of what we should do with adding a league play. I think that should happen either way, but I do think that would help the game. And if we were just to add league play and remove skill-based matchmaking altogether, because I think a lot of the competitive players would just move to league play and probably play that exclusively or play that most of the time. So anyways, that's my thoughts on it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of skill-based matchmaking in the comments down below, and whether you disagree or agree with my take on it. And yeah, that's all for me. Thank you, and I'll see you guys later. Hex Odyssey out.